Greetings, students. My name is Carl DeClotz, and I am very excited today to talk to you on the subject of the legal structures of business. On a side note, if you're interested in an associate in science in business administration or management, please contact me at my scheduled Zoom hours. I'm also can review with you an associate's of arts in economics or your certificate achievement in business offered at our colleges. I could help you with a lot of insight and background on that as I had gone through when I was a student here, and then also get you coordinated with the on-campus counselor. Other than that, let's kick off into our review of legal structures in business. Let's go to the second slide here. Student learning outcome for today. Compare and contrast the different businesses of the sole proprietorship, the partnership, limited partnership, corporations, and limited liability companies. For today, we're going to focus on sole proprietors, partnerships, and corporations, okay? I always like to first talk about an industry, and I like to talk about one of my favorite industries, which is the coffee industry. You can see one of your favorite brands here. It might be this one right here. My favorite brand is the Cup of Joy right next to our campus right here. So this is an example of a sole proprietorship. Cup of Joy. The next one, Dutch Brothers. I see a lot of you guys long lines for this in these grabbing these coffees. The Dutch Brothers, an example of a partnership opportunity, maybe a franchise. Another example of a corporation here is the 7-Eleven stores. And then we get to the big players. McDonald's, and of course the market industry competitive leader Starbucks. Okay, so who thought someone would spend $5 on a cup of coffee when I was back in college? And you know, we're spending 25 cents to 50 cents for this cup of coffee, right? But now you got lattes, you got cappuccinos, espressos, and a lot of macchiatos and a lot of different specialty coffees that are coming to play. How did they structure their businesses? We're going to take a look at sole proprietorship, the partnership, and the corporation here. Which is your favorite? Choose what legal structure would best represent you. So when we look at different structures of business, the sole proprietor, you just have the owner, right? There's no one else. And it tends to be small, sometimes with little or no employees. The second graduated step could be the partnership. 2 or more owners, tends to be small with few employees. And then, of course, a corporation. Corporation is a legal entity that is similar to the individuals in the eye of the law and may be larger or smaller with few or many employees. The sole proprietorship, the benefits and the cost. The benefits is you only have to worry about yourself as an ownership. You don't have to meet with a board of directors or make a meeting with someone else and have to compromise or make decisions. You make your own decisions. You receive all the benefits and profits and incomes, and sky's the limit. It's easy to start, it's easy to close down. Those are the main attractivenesses of a business for the sole proprietorship. People come from all over the globe to want to do business in the United States because of this. The capitalism in the United States for the sole proprietorship. Cost, responsible for all the decisions and debts. Unlimited liability, not to be overlooked. You can have your personal bank accounts levied. They can repossess your car. They could even foreclose on your house, okay? So it's very important decision to go into business and the responsibilities that you have. Difficult to get startup or expansion financing, and income profits taxed at personal income rates and not at a business rate. Focus in on partnerships. Partnerships benefits, shared decision makings. This can be a great, what I call marriage sometimes, when you got someone skilled in marketing and someone skilled in operations. They could blend their talents together to be very successful. They can rely on each other party's expertise, and they can relatively start easy like a sole proprietorship. You do need to have a partnership agreement, and it's got to be well detailed out to be successful. The cost, you may have differences of opinions or disagreements, and those have ended and failed many partnerships. You must be able to decide when to do business with one person and who wants to lease or close it down. Unlimited liability, just like the sole proprietorship, but the dynamic here, which is different, is you don't only have to worry about yourself, you have to worry about someone else's ethics and business decision making. It's difficult to get startup or expansion financing, even with partnerships, and income and profits are taxed again at personal income rates, not at business rates, such as the sole proprietorship. A focus in on corporations. These benefits are that they are legal entities held with responsible for their own decisions. The ownership is separate and apart from the owners and the shareholders. So the shareholders are protected if the corporation fails. They're managed by a board of directors that keep the checks and balances. They have to be transparent. They need to do reports, quarterly reports, annual reports. Owners and shareholders have limited liability. It can be easier to start up and expand, get expansion financing. They considered an individual and pays its own taxes at corporate tax rates, which could be an advantage if you're in that business situation. The cost, it requires legal service and fees and to be established and maintained. So you need to have attorneys and accountants involved. You may be subjected to more paperwork and state and federal regulations, and it's not may, you will be. And you may have managers with absentee ownership where they're not as involved as you might have thought they might have been with their expertise. One last slide I'd like to kind of concentrate is here with the different looks of different corporations. They could be either publicly held or privately held. The fundamental difference is with a public company, you can buy stock and invest in it. And then there is the private company. I always like the two examples of Hershey Chocolate and the M&M Mars family. M&M Mars is a private company in the confectionery industry. Hershey used to be a family company. Milton Hershey died, didn't have any heirs, left his company to an orphanage, and then they incorporated. And they sell shares of stock. So if you want to invest in a company like Hershey, you can buy stocks in it. If you want to invest in a company like M&M Mars, you're not able to because it is a privately held company. The differences here are publicly held companies can sell stock to the general public. They are required to give quarterly reports by the SEC, and the information is shared with the stockholders and the general public through annual reports and quarterly reports. Privately held companies, their shares are not traded, but they can have stocks. They could family or personal membership stocks. It's generally by the founder and or their family members over the years when they are deceased or pass away. There's no reports required. There's no quarterly reports. There's no annual reports required. And the information doesn't need to be regulated closely by the SEC for investment purposes for the general public. So again, that is widely held as a advantage to people wanting to make their own decisions versus go to a board and be very political about that. So fundamentally, there's different motivations with being public or private, or being a sole proprietorship to a partnership to a corporation. One way to protect yourself if you're a sole proprietorship is liability insurance, what they call an umbrella policy. And it's one way to make sure that you protect yourself in the realm of unlimited liability and your personal assets. This is it for the quick look at the structures of business and motivations behind them, and the benefits and the costs. And we'll look forward to following up with you next time. Thank you.